And what do you think are the causes of white confoundedness?
Well, that gets even more interesting when you start, you know, digging deeper, beyond definition. But I think that um, avoidance, repression of pain and trauma, in not wanting to face up to or discuss anything regarding the guilt of our racist history in this country, and use of power to continue that dominance. I think it's also another cause, a sense of being overwhelmed with the issues associated with racism, leading to some becoming blinded by outrage, even. But that overwhelming nature of the issue, for those who aren't oblivious, that just want to, they're into, some sort of an awareness process, it can get overwhelmed. I'm not saying it should, but it can. The fear of change and the unknown, and having little or no background of relatedness. But that's the term I use, background relatedness with others, quote unquote, others, and or not understanding the true history of racism or even wanting to. Avoidance of fear then leads to increasing the volume of my space, meaning white space, by the absence of black people and others in my life and sustaining the white dominance position. So it's just a matter of, you know, the way I want to handle things, and in my white world, and therefore by exclusion, you're not there, meaning blacks aren't there. And perhaps the key one is fear of being labeled as a racist or supremacist or fragile or privileged. So these are all things that can contribute to that. Um, a thought possibility from a friend of mine and I don't mean this to be rationalization, but it could lessen that fear, if you will. I am not a racist, but I have parts that are racist, fragile, or privileged. So that's again a thought, quote unquote. I am not a racist, but I have parts that are racist. Uh, that would be, I think, a good and reasonable place to start. For those who believe they're white, to look at this a little bit more deeply, and with a sense that I know I've got a lot of good stuff going on that I know in my life, and I know I'm doing good work, but maybe I have parts that maybe that are less than that. And I must admit, even from my own standpoint, that these things happen. We all stumble and fumble, and so I like that thought that it's a that parts sort of thing. So that's something to keep in mind, for people when you get into these conversations.
Hmm. That makes me think of the how would you put it? I'm trying to remember. There was a comedian who brought it up, but let me see. Racism. Oh no, no, no! It wasn't a comedian. It was me. I would joke that. Oh no, a comedian said that there's no the problem in balancing the scales of racism was that there's nothing you can say to a white person that hits the same as a racial slur to a minority. And since then, because I thought about that for years, because this was long ago, I heard that line, and I was like, there is one word: racist. Calling a white person racist initiates the same reaction from a white person as a minority person being called by a racial slur.
Right.
And I find that hilarious.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it really is, because I can remember years ago when I first, kind of got into this, and it was like, oh my God, Howard Eagle, and I think I mentioned that name to you before. In fact, he's still writing me on this Beacon article the last day or so. Called me a racist, and then you're like, oh my God. But I, I've learned to accept that. I mean, that hasn't happened, but if it did, and on the flip side, as I mentioned before, the whole thing about silence and or being labeled, and as I said, in the consequences part, in unimaginable ways. I mean, I look at those now as somewhat. I don't really mean this, but I mean it's almost like a blessing to a certain extent that I can at least have that challenge that presents a contrast to what I am experiencing in terms of the overwhelming support that I've gotten and received, through this work since publication last year. You don't know you don't know what you got, in terms of the full benefit unless you have some darkness thrown in on it. That's maybe something you don't want to have, but if it comes your way, it presents a contrast that you can relate to.
Yeah.
So I find that to be helpful, you know, and I plan on using that when I have opportunities, especially within, you know, family circles, to maybe express that, and be interesting to see what the reaction is. But I really mean it. It isn't just a throwaway on my part to make me feel better.
Yeah.
It really is meaningful to me.